So look, let's talk about Fox News. There's a lot of slavery stuff going on these days. Speaking of that, I want to talk about something.
Okay.
I learned a lesson over the weekend. I don't know if you saw this. So I posted a video, I posted we talk about slavery. Slavery is a very divisive, emotionally draining yet important piece of not just American history, but world history. There was an entire economy that powered nations of the world, that was the backbone of international trade that was based upon our ancestors. I'm talking about specific slavery that existed here in America, the transatlantic slave trade, all of those things. I believe that to be very important. And I believe that the historical accuracy of understanding the transatlantic slave trade, to me, doesn't make us blacker or any less black, but it does give some historical context to the horror of white supremacy. And I think that historical context is necessary to understand how we reconcile things if we want to build American and world communities with people that at least have the legacy of tremendous atrocity against Black people. I really do believe that. So there was a tweet that I saw, and the tweet was this. I'll read the tweet now. The tweet was from Astro Bay at Hood Healer. What I'm saying is that I didn't know who this person was, but it doesn't matter, right? I didn't know who this sister was. It doesn't matter. And this is the tweet. The tweet was, have you ever seen an actual slave ship? I've seen all kinds of artifacts, but never a ship. Have y'all? And then there's a response that was sent on July 9th. There was a response, and it says, shit, not real. I'm starting to believe the transatlantic slave trade is a fake story. I clipped that, put it on my Instagram, and I said, we laugh at shit like this, and don't get me wrong, it's chuckle worthy, but it's so dangerous. There are people in this country who are making up history as they go along, and these people are depending on your ignorance to power your story. If you have no story, you have no identity. Be careful. The reason why I said that is because I think that, number one, the transatlantic slave trade is real. There are reasons why there are no intact slave ships. There are not very many ships from that period. There are only around 20 to 25 ships existing pre-1808, which is, whenever the slave trade would have become illegal in most places. And so to me, I don't think the fact that there are no ships means that we don't have significant evidence that the slave trade existed. I think that there are more than enough artifacts, more than enough of a paper trail, and really history on both sides that tells you that this happened. And in the times that we live in, having that history out there and having people that are trying to tell you, hey, this never happened, this never happened, this never happened. It's not coming from inside of the community all the time. It's coming from people who are saying that the history that you're talking about is not real, that whatever. And they're trying to rewrite new history here in America. I thought that was it, that struck me as something that I should kind of speak about. So I put it up there, and I realized that the Hood Healer is a Black lady on Instagram and Twitter, and who does a lot of stuff, has a lot of followers, has a message that a lot of people really, really love and really lean on her. And that when I put it out there, even though I stand by the substance of what's in the tweet, what's in the caption, meaning I believe that the transatlantic slave trade is real, and I personally don't see the value in discussing whether or not it's not real. Now, I've since done some research and seen that a lot of people believe that there were Black indigenous people here to North America prior to the transatlantic slave trade, and that they made up the transatlantic slave trade to make us feel like America wasn't our land or that we have no claim to this land. I am not going to even broach that or approach that topic. That's something that me and my grandmother used to talk about. That's something that you hear a lot when you're in South Louisiana. It actually doesn't have much to do with what I'm talking about, right? But what I will say is this, is for me personally, I did learn a lesson. The lesson I learned is this, is that for me, having a discourse like that, I'm going to leave it up just so I don't run from it, but having a discourse like that on Twitter, inside or on Instagram, inside the community is less than productive. Like she hit me up. She goes, "Hey, Van, you shouldn't have done that, blah, blah, blah." I mean, you can go to my Instagram and read her whole message. And the overall takeaway was that, if you want to know more about what I think about this, hit me up and I'll explain it to you. But putting it on there and putting it out there and subjecting me to maybe ridicule and scorn from your followers is probably not the best way to do that. She's absolutely right. 100%.
She's right.
She's absolutely right. Now, what's in these tweets is wrong, but she's a black lady. And as a black lady, she doesn't just deserve, and I do that to everyone, right? I'll do that to, if I see a bad example or like a bad idea, what I'll do is I'll confront that idea. Like, I don't like this, boom, 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 boom. I do that to everybody. But being that she's a black lady, she doesn't deserve what everybody else gets. What she probably deserves is a little bit of extra understanding and a little bit of extra care. And I did not do that. So while I don't feel bad about thinking what I thought, because I don't think there's anything to what they are talking about. What I will do is I will make sure that in the future, when I'm talking to black people, that I disagree responsibly. So I do want to say that. I want to make sure I put that out there for everybody to hear my voice. Like, I'll disagree, but I'll disagree responsibly. So that's a lesson that a 42-year-old man can learn. Okay, now, talking about slavery, this is what the fuck I'm talking about. Fox News host complains that she went to the Jefferson Museum and it was critical because it focused on slavery. Fox hosts have complained that exhibits at Thomas Jefferson's Monticello home leave visitors feeling ashamed because they focus too much on his ownership of slaves. Donnie, run the audio.
Still inspires everybody today. All men are created equal and all this kind of stuff. A great architect, scholar, Thomas Jefferson. And instead I got, exactly the opposite. It just debunking his history, his reputation, putting him down, demoralizing everybody on my tour. It was just sadly predictable too these days. I just thought that maybe Monticello would be protected from this disease of wokeism, but
I don't believe him. I don't. I have a feeling that if we went on that tour, I'm sure that all those things he mentioned about Thomas Jefferson were mentioned as well. And guess what? What else is a part of his past? Slavery. And I'm sure they talked about it. And if they had said one sentence about it, he needed some story or narrative to fit what the rhetoric that Fox News is putting out there. And so this was an opportunity for him to talk about it. And of course, use one of their favorite words, woke. I don't believe this, but let's just say what he's saying is true. All right. Let's just say it's true. And he walked away feeling ashamed. Okay. I feel like you walked away feeling ashamed. I don't know what to tell you. I don't feel bad that you feel ashamed the fact that Thomas Jefferson owned slaves and they discussed it at great length, according to him, in this tour. It's true. It's a fact. We all know it. It happened at the very place that you were doing a tour of. So what's the problem in discussing it? I don't understand. If you felt bad, that's your own personal problem. And maybe you need to flush that out and figure out why that made you feel bad, that they were talking about slavery. But the fact is, it's true. And if you're taking some type of historical tour, then they're going to give you the history of it, which includes a not so great history in regards to Thomas Jefferson of slavery. So what's the problem? Are you supposed to walk away? I don't need to. But here's the thing. How are you supposed to walk away and feel? Were you supposed to feel patriotic? Were you supposed to feel? I don't understand. You were there to explore Thomas Jefferson and his past and his history and this plantation or this museum that focused on his life and his place in this country. That includes slavery. What's the problem? What's the problem? I'm so over people trying to erase the negative parts of people's history, the people that you deem as heroic. You don't want to talk about the bad side of it. But I honestly don't believe this even happened. I think this is an exaggerated story.
Let me get this out of the way real quick. Thomas Jefferson was absolutely brilliant. So you guys know. Thomas Jefferson had 17 days to complete the Declaration of Independence, and that motherfucker did it in 2. That motherfucker was smart. He was a brilliant, gorgeous mind. That motherfucker was a raping, savage, dedicated slaver. And so was Washington and the rest of them. Deal with it. I'm not going to go do a whole long hyperbolic journey into the annals of American or world history. I'm going to say 2 things are true. Number 1, Thomas Jefferson, brilliant guy. George Washington, great general. Also, Washington, dedicated slaver that was so dedicated to slavery. I've said this before. A law was passed saying that your slaves had to be free after 6 months. George Washington would take all of his slaves, bring them below the Mason-Dixon line every 6 months to reset the clock on their slavery rather than let them go free. He fought against having to give the human capital that he had back. Facts. Also, Thomas Jefferson held his children into slavery. What the fuck? His kids. His children were slaves. He didn't free them. So the reality is, you guys, your heroes didn't have capes. You know what they had? Whips.
Whips.
That's enough.